Welcome to episode 202 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the second season edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm back with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and somebody who I'm looking forward to hearing some of his thoughts, especially in regards to one particular thing. His name is Joshua Fine. Welcome back, brother. Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's been an interesting holiday for sure. We saw, or I visited Texas and visited, or at least was briefly on the outside of the grounds of Circuit of the Americas over in Austin, so went and saw that. Unfortunately, they're closed for winter renovation, so that's okay, but at least got to witness what it looks like from the outside in person and see that great racetrack. They did have a holiday light display there, but wasn't able to get there in time. But would have been like to have done that. So unfortunately, not on the cards for that. But still great to see that. Of course, also saw the Alamo. Had to remember it. Went to a Houston Rockets game and all that stuff. So and saw the NASA Space Center there in Houston as well. So yeah, great trip in Texas. And the other topic, of course, that you will hear about later, the Jaguars. I honestly thought about starting this podcast next to my grill on fire, so we could set them on fire, I guess. But that might be a little bit dangerous, and it's also dark outside, so it would be a little bit difficult to do that and record this at the same time. But it was definitely thought of. But other than that, I'm ready to start 2024 on this show. You're still unmuted there.
Shoot, my bad. There you go. You'd think that I would know this after 200 something episodes, but glad that you're back. We're doing the regular scheduled programming again, watching the college football national championship where Michigan is leading the University of Michigan's leading University of Washington 17-3 at the moment. Jim Harbaugh, in what, if he wins this game, is what likely is his last game at Michigan, the way things seem to be going, but we'll see what happens with all that. Tonight we're going to go and talk about all the motorsports that's going on. We got Chili Bowl going on tonight, the first night of the prelims. We got Dakar Rally. And then there's other key stories. There's some NASCAR news that came out today in regards to college racing and trackhouse racing. So we'll go over that. And then anything else that comes to mind. And we'll get into NFL Week 18, which was interesting to say the least. A lot of teams were sitting players. Other teams weren't sitting players, and it went a certain way. We'll get into all of that, talk about fantasy in more detail since the season is over, at least the regular season part of it is over. And then Black Monday, we'll make our picks for Super Wildcard Weekend, preview those games. Josh will, of course, bring out the sim segment to start 2024, and we'll close the deal. So Josh let us know about his exploits in Texas, New Orleans. Got to go and experience all that. It's one thing. I'll probably want to go there, at least go to New Orleans at some point in life. I thought when you mentioned the Alamo, I was going to ask you if you had seen any big old women in San Antonio like Charles Barkley always talks about, and you saw a bunch of churros, but I don't think doesn't seem like that was the case. After, what is it, he copped to drinking 10, 15, 20 Diet Cokes a day, so he's trying to go and cut that off last week on Inside the NBA, which I guess he's trying to be the big old woman in that case, but that's beside the point. Let's get into the world of motorsports right now. Dakar Rally is going on, and Yazid Al-Rahi is retaking the overall lead in the Dakar Rally for the cars. over Carlos Sainz. So that's Carlos Sainz had taken the lead over there. I'm going to go and bring it up. It'd be nice to Dakar Rally. I mean, there's not a whole lot. I mean, the Chili Bowl now, I'll also talk about the Chili Bowl since we're on the first day of it. Before we get into more detail, they announced that it's not going to be on regular TV, so it's a bummer, but in the end, I guess you have to take it for what it is. And with all the issues that they seemingly have in running the race or getting the race in a timely manner, so take the good with the bad. Right now in the bikes category, the leader is Kevin Benavides, the defending winner of the race on a Red Bull KTM. In second place is the American Ricky Brabeck, former winner of the race. He's 1 minute 11 seconds behind, and a minute of that is from a penalty. So, if you take that out, it would be 11 seconds right now. Trying to get his second win. Skylar Howes, another American racing for Honda, is in fourth place. Other guys, Pablo Quintanilla is in seventh, another Honda rider. Ross Branch riding for Hero is in fifth, and Toby Price, former winner of this race, is in ninth place right now, 6.5 minutes, 6:36 behind. So that's just a few of the guys there that are in contention early on through 3 stages of the race. And then let's say Rally 2. In Rally 2, also motorcycle category, Indian Harith Noah is in third place, 7:35 out of the lead held by Romain Dumontier. So that hopefully we can see Indian rider go and win that class because of course, my personal bias. The quad category, Alexander Giroud is leading for Yamaha Racing, and then we're going into quads, and I don't know what those are. So now in the cars category, prototype cross country two-wheel drive, standout people, Layla Sands, the teammate of Carlos Sainz in Extreme E, she's in fourth place, and the Coronels, who, if you're on Twitter, probably have followed you at some point and unfollowed you. They're in ninth place. They were involved in a pretty big wreck today, though, so we'll see how that goes and if they're able to come back for tomorrow's stage. They're in big repairs and stuff, so see how that all works out. And in the ultimate category, which is for the electric or hybrid, that's the Audi team. Matthias Ekstrom right now leads Carlos Sainz by 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And Stefan Petterhansel, who won his 50th stage of his illustrious Dakar career like yesterday or on Sunday, 11 minutes 40 seconds behind. So Lucas Marias for Toyota was the winner of the stage. Yazid Al-Rahi, who took the overall lead in the race. It was 1:09. Oh, that's the thing. I'm doing it by stage ranking. That's my fault. I'll go back. Rebellion Racing's Romain Dumas is in fourth for today's stage. I'm trying to go through. Janil de Villiers was 11th. American Seth Quintero is 12th, both driving for Toyota. Sebastian Loeb finished 18th in the stage, lost 23 minutes to the winner. So I'll go and check on that again. Challenger category, the winner of the stage today was American Mitchell Guthrie and Kellen Walk. So that's great news to see that. American Austin Jones driving for Can-Am finished 6th in the stage. Chris Meek, former British Rally champion and World Rally drivers, finished 8th. In the SSV category, Sarah Price and her co-driver Jeremy Gray finished 4th in the stage today. So that's our hopes for that class. So let's get back. I'll go and correct myself. So in the general standings right now, Ross Branch leads overall by over Jose Ignacio Cornejo Florimo, who's a Honda rider, first of 4 Honda riders by 3 minutes 11 seconds. Ricky Brabeck is third, 5:08 behind. Kevin Benavides is 20 minutes 32 behind, and Toby Price, Quintanilla fourth, 16 behind, and with 6 minutes of penalties, Toby Price is 22:57 behind in seventh. Daniel Sanders, Luciano Benavides, and Martin Michek round out the top 10. Skylar Howes is just outside of the top 10 in 12th, 41-45 behind. And trying to see if there's anybody else. Mason Klein, another American, is 17th of 8 hours and 56:52 behind. So he's just trying to run out the string after 3 stages. Go through the quad category. It doesn't really matter. I'll go into the cars. 4x2, a Matthew Serradori for Century Racing Factory Team leads by 42 minutes and 29 seconds over Layla Sands. Coronels are 2:23:33 out in 7th. There's 20 competitors in that class as of now. In the ultimate race for the Audi team, Carlos Sainz leads Matthias Ekstrom by 7 minutes 57 seconds. Stefan Petterhansel 21:36 behind. And then in the regular cars category, the all prototype cross country, the leader is Yazid Al Rahi with 13 hours 7:29. He's 29 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz at the moment. Lucas Marias is in third, 13, 15, 55. Oh, so actually, no. Matthias Ekstrom is third, then Marias is fourth. Nasser Al-Attiyah is the defending winner of the race, is in fifth, 10:49 behind. Sebastian Loeb is 24:58 out. Seth Quintero 27:18. So early in the race, see what can transpire here as things go on. Challenger category, Mitchell Guthrie, Kellen Walk are third, 15:58 behind. Christina Gutierrez, who has driven for X44 and Extreme E, 28 minutes behind right now in fourth. Austin Jones in sixth, 44:24. And in SSV, Sarah Price is in second place, 15 minutes and 5 seconds behind. So definitely has an opportunity to go and win on debut in this category. So we'll definitely keep up with that next week and give you more details on that. I'm gonna bring up the Chili Bowl right now. The Chili Bowl Midget Nationals racing again this year, and 38th running the Cummins qualifying night. So amongst the drivers that are going to be in, so the A feature, okay, there you go. So is that the lineup, or is that what actual qualifying Race of Champions lineup? Oh, they just drew for positions in the Race of Champions, or no? That I don't get it. Anyway, the Chase Briscoe is in this in tonight's races, so he's trying to make it into the A main. Of course, they only lock in the top 2 out of the after tonight, and then everybody else as you land will be in the alphabet soup. Cannon McIntosh is on pole for the A feature. Jacob Denny in second. Tanner Carrick fourth. Michael Pickens fifth. Shane Golobic is sixth. Chase Briscoe is in 12th. Taylor Reimer in 14th, Chris Windham 15th. So those are some of the names to look at in terms of look at Molly McGrath. Damn. Top 16 combined passing point, a feature. I'm trying to find some of the other people. So in the B mains, Weston Gorham, Ricky Lewis, Cole Bodine, and Chris Carroll advanced. Sam Haferteep Jr. one spot out. That's going to definitely make his life a whole lot more difficult on Saturday to make the main. Kevin Newton, Noah Gass, Keith Rock, and Alex Sewell advanced in the second B main. So they'll be in the A to try to go and make it somehow or another climb the ladder. And in terms of the O'Reilly Auto Parts Race of Champions qualifying, Logan Seavey was qualified on top over Jesse Love, the defending ARCA Series champion. Tyler Courtney, Sunshine, was third. Briscoe fourth. Brent Cruz, Spencer Baston, the defending winner. Logan Seavey is the defending race winner of the Chili Bowl. Zach Daum in seventh. Carter Sarf, Cannon McIntosh, Hank Davis, David Gravel, Corey Day, Tanner Thorson, Kaylee Bryson, Sammy Swindell, Jade Avedizian, Justin Grant, Brandon Moletti, Tim McCready, and Ricky Thornton Jr. Round out the 20 drivers that'll be in the ROC. It looks like the top 6 had a shootout, or top 5 had a shootout, and that's why Chase Briscoe's on pole for the Race of Champions over and Tyler Courtney, Jesse Love, Logan Seavey, and Brent Cruz. The rest of the lineup goes as said from 6th on through 20th. So we'll see what happens. We'll definitely give you more updates next week on who does what in the Chili Bowl. I'm trying to see which heat. Yeah, in Heat 6, that was Chase Briscoe. He got up to 4th. He made a pass. He passed 2 guys on the final lap of his heat race to get into the A main there based on his passing points. And then they did the qualifier, and I'm trying to see where he was. Chase Briscoe finished 4th in that one. Tanner Carrick over Nick Hoffman, Emilio Hoover, and Chase Briscoe. Cannon McIntosh, Shane Galobic, Chris Windham, Ricky Lewis. In the second qualifier, Michael Pickens, Jacob Denny, Kyle Bellum, and Howard Moore. Cole Bodine was 6th. I see some of these other names, not really familiar, some of them. Fourth qualifier, Trey Marcham, Gary Taylor, Taylor Reimer, Noah Gass, and Sam Haferteep Jr. was 9th. Michelle Decker was 8th. So we'll definitely get into that more next week because we'll have, 4 more days of prelims. You'll have the Race of Champions. Hopefully I can say that Chase Briscoe won. Be a better start to the year considering how shitty his year was last year. If he can go and make the main and have a chance, it'll be great. Because who knows what the hell they're going to do in the Cup Series this year. They now have a new logo and marketing and all that stuff at Stewart-Haas. They put that out there today. Tony is talking about all this about competition and shit, and I'm like, dude, you're a top field driver, man. I mean, you're driving Leah's car. Once we get to Gainesville, are you really going to be sitting there looking at what's going on with the Cup cars? I mean, I'm a Tony Stewart mark, and I've had to defend him through a lot of whatever. But you're going to tell me that you think that saying all this shit and whatever, all these changes, virtually no sponsorship on the 4 car or the 10 car, and then you got Briscoe's solid with his sponsors. The 41 with Ryan Preece is more or less, I think, okay. But you're going to tell me that things are going to turn around with this car, and after what transpired the last couple of years, I mean, I have a hard time believing that personally, but stranger things have happened, and who knows what can come of that. So yeah, let's go and move forward.
Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about that because I saw that logo change and I was like, that's probably the next thing that we're going to talk about on the show. So
Yeah, I mean, the logo change doesn't change the fact that they have sucked for the past couple of years, and uh, doesn't change the sponsorship situation or any of that stuff. I mean, granted, you had Cole Custer win the Xfinity Championship, and Riley Herbst for the first time I think ever in his life, he looked like he had a clue. So there is some hope there. In terms of we're in January, early January. They're going to be racing at the Coliseum in less than a month, and we don't know virtually any sponsors for two of their four vehicles, and which is not good when you consider how much it costs to go and run a Cup car, let alone four of them. But we'll see what happens, what they announce here as we get into the upcoming weeks. The logo's fine, snazzy, I guess, more updated to more modern. And to be fair, the old Stewart Haas logo was more based off of like a '57 Chevy, if you really look at it.
it was old styling for sure.
Yeah, so they haven't been a Chevy program since 2017, so or 20 yes, since 2016, so it was probably good time to update it. With Kevin Harvick's retirement, it probably is trying to go and change things up a bit, which I mean, we'll see what happens. You can't make any true judgments until we see them on the racetrack here in a few weeks' time. But we'll go on from there. So, Josh, I'll bring you in now because there was some news. First, I'll be remiss to speak about the loss of Tim Steele, the three-time ARCA Series champion, one of the best drivers ever in that series, a guy who in his day might have been one of the best cookie cutter and super speedway drivers out there, had a chance to make it in Cup, and with Bud Moore and probably say Bud Moore's organization in a massive accident at Atlanta, which ended up leaving Tim Steele with a severe concussion, basically derailed his Cup career. And can understand that based on what happened with Ernie Irvan as well. A lot of concussions, a lot of injuries that took place in those early to mid 90s. Steve Park broke his leg at Atlanta in his rookie year when he slammed the wall after blowing a tire. You had Mike Skinner, I think, broke his shoulder after blowing a tire there. Derek Cope, there's a wreck that he had there as well. So, I mean, that was a dangerous track, and because of how fast they were going. When you think about Jeff Bodine, until a few years ago, Jeff Bodine had held the record for a 1.5 mile track or whatever, a non-restrictor plate track for speed with that 197 mile an hour lap that he cut in the fall of 1997 there. So rest in peace to Tim Steele. Our thoughts and prayers to his family and ARCA Series. Hopefully they'll do something to honor him, but who knows? It is the same dopes that run NASCAR. So Travis Mack, the crew chief for Daniel Suarez over the past couple of years, is now essentially being traded for Matt Swiderski. Travis Mack will move over
16
to the 16. That's a misprint. He's going to Colleague Racing as the technical director and will be the crew chief of the 16 car, which will have a bunch of different drivers over this season. And Matt Swiderski moves from the 16 car to go and work with Daniel Suarez on the 99. So now, I mean, I'll let you go first, Josh. I mean, for the 16 car, they're going back to what they were doing a couple years ago, where they're going to have a mix of drivers. AJ Allmendinger probably is going to get a good amount of starts in that car. You're going to have Josh Williams driving that car because he's the other full-time driver. Might be some other people as we go along. Then you go and so that they're going to have a mix of drivers this season. You're also, and then on the flip side, Matt Swiderski moves over to Trackhouse to work with Suarez. Suarez missed the playoffs last year, didn't win a race, was well off the pace of what Ross Chastain did. So he needs to perform. When you look at what Trackhouse is doing at the moment, you have Zane Smith, who's coming up this year as a rookie, driving for Spire, but really it's a Trackhouse. I mean, I don't know what the machinations are or how that whole thing. It's a Spire entry, but to be fair, it was a 50-50 deal that both Spire and Justin Marks bought the charter off of BJ McLeod and Joe Falk and Matt Tift there. So it's a year, Josh, that Daniel Suarez, it's a career defining year, I think. Is he going to stay in Cup? Is he going to stay with Trackhouse Racing, or is he going to be moved over for Zane Smith or Shane Van Gisbergen? Because SVG is planning on being in the Cup Series in 2025. He's running the full Xfinity Series this year. Amongst other series, he'll be running the ARCA 200 at Daytona to qualify for running the Xfinity race there. So a lot of changes going on and a lot of moving parts there, but essentially two crew chiefs that have been at their respective organizations for a good amount of time essentially get traded for each other.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, though, because, yeah, like you said, Daniel Suarez had a career year in 2022, won at Sonoma, and had several other races where he was fairly competitive and made the playoffs that year. But, last year took a step back and didn't make it in. So now you swap guys out, and now he's going to have another chance to prove himself in this car. And like you said, could have the ability to get swapped out with Zane Smith or SVG, depending on how Trackhouse wants to go. But I also have a feeling that they probably have a master plan for Trackhouse to eventually go to 3 or 4 cars in Cup, which that's where Zane Smith and SVG will go. But I think it's easier to go expand to 3 cars and 1 car go to SVG, and then possibly you swap out a car for Zane Smith, or driver for Zane Smith, and that would have to be Daniel Suarez. I think Ross Chastain has proven that he's the guy over there. He's their lead driver, and he didn't have as good of a year as what he did in 22 points wise, but I think he's shown enough that he's their lead driver there. And I think Suarez, this is a prove it year for him, and he's got to be able to at least win a race and make the playoffs. So that's what's on the line for him. And I think if he doesn't do that, then potentially get relegated back to Xfinity, or possibly find another ride at a different organization in Cup where he could go and compete in. So we'll see how it turns out, but that's an interesting move. And I think also for Travis Mack, this is a important opportunity for him to go out and compete and with a team, but then also lead an organization as the technical director. And I think that's ultimately a move up for him. So we'll see how that improves Kaulig, and we'll see how that 16 car does with him leading that team as crew chief, and then also working with a bunch of different drivers as they go back to an all-star car with that car.
Yeah, I think that one is interesting because we look at what Trackhouse, or I mean, not Trackhouse, Colleague did. Both teams, to be fair, had kind of took a step back or like a half step back in terms of Trackhouse, and then Colleague was further behind. But AJ Allmendinger won at Indy, or not Indy, he won at Charlotte. My bad. Yeah, that was when Mike Dell won in Indy. Michael McDowell won the Rove, or I mean, Jesus. AJ Allmendinger won on the Roval, and Michael McDowell won at Indy. So, but AJ was able to win a cup race, but deep down inside, he wanted to go back to Xfinity, run full time. Gives him more flexibility with his time now that he's a father. And he's more competitive, obviously, in the Xfinity Series. You get to compete for wins basically every week. That is more appealing to AJ at this point in his career. Travis Mack coming into the team, bringing all the ideas, a lot of the ideas and stuff that's from Trackhouse, all of his experience over the years. And also you add that Daniel Hemrick coming back up to the Cup Series as a full-time driver, a second opportunity in the Cup Series. How will this help him in the full-time car, the 31 car? And for Swiderski, I mean, pressure's on him too, in a sense, because Suarez is in a prove-it scenario, and I doubt that they're going to move on from him for, if they move Zane Smith. I think, if anything, Swiderski is there to hedge for like SVG because they want a cup proven crew chief, somebody who's worked with young drivers or with drivers that have less experience, and it kind of fits the mode where he could go and probably work with SVG next year in 2025, if and when he gets moved up there. That'll be something that we will see for sure. Ray Evernham and Rob Kaufman, the asshole that is the reason why we have charters, about the only thing that he brought to the table. I guess he saved Michael Waltrip Racing for good, bad, or indifferent, but they brought back IROC, so who knows what that'll mean, if they're going to compete this year. The SRX series was Ray Evernham's idea, and he did it with Tony Stewart and the Montag group, and that was his baby, basically, what the IROC series was about, but it's on short tracks. They were doing short tracks Saturday night kind of thing, middle of the week. But immediately after the first season, he left. He collects all of these IROC cars. He was an IROC employee for many years and the crew chief for the IROC series under Jay Signori. So, I mean, in that sense, it's cool to see it go back. What they will be doing and where they're going to be running is to be determined, but that was announced today. Who knows if there is a room to have both the IROC and SRX. But I guess we'll find that out. Going through some of the other news, Josh, we talked offline about sports betting, and there were a couple of announcements. DraftKings and NASCAR made an agreement for sports betting in North Carolina, and then also an expansion of sponsorship, not just for the series for NASCAR itself. Of course, they sponsor 2311 with Darrell Walsh Jr. Then you had BetMGM. They are gonna be a part of North Carolina's betting approval of sports betting and connect with Charlotte Motor Speedway. So you think about SMI, they're connecting with BetMGM. BetMGM sponsors Kyle Busch in the 8 car. So I think we're getting to a point now where I think every sports book that is legitimate is going to be on a car and or connected to a track as we get get things going. You like you talked about. I don't know if we talked about specific books, but Hard Rock.
Yeah, down in Florida now.
Down in Florida, so wouldn't be surprising if they made a inroads. I mean, they won't do it at they can't really do it at Daytona or Homestead because of the the deal with DraftKings, but they could possibly get on a car. Like that might be an idea. We're talking about SHR and their
Yeah,
sponsors and stuff.
Gregson there.
Gregson would probably be an idea there. And so I mean, I guess I go and reference this also because of your ability to make great picks and the being the computer genius that you are, but also just understanding the sport and being someone that has an interest in betting. What does this mean? This bigger expansion, of course, into the key markets that that NASCAR race in, and then the expansion. What will it mean? We lost alcohol sponsors essentially outside of Busch. We don't really have any alcohol sponsors anymore. Of course, we don't have any cigarette sponsors, but now betting is a thing. So is there going to be that saturation in the Cup Series? Is there going to be that flow of money to possibly strengthen some of these organizations, give them an opportunity, or is there an opportunity for these organizations to connect with specific sports books and go and have B2B kind of deals?
I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely an opportunity. You look at how sponsorship has worked in the sport, and obviously they depended heavily on alcohol sponsorship. One of the vices for many years, and also with cigarettes, and now they're turning over potentially to another vice and gambling and going on with that. And there's definitely opportunities. Hard Rock down in Florida is now legal, so that will be an opportunity for a team or something or potentially a track like Homestead Miami or even Daytona to partner up with and have sports betting at the racetrack there like that, or a team such as Stuart Haas, like we've theorized right now, to say that they could potentially do some type of deal with Noah Gregson, who might end up fitting that demographic. I think his type of personality, demeanor, kind of lends to the type of people that would gamble. So there might be an opportunity there. So there's that possibility. But then also I got to think about the credibility of the sport, because I think we're seeing gambling advertisements throughout other sports, throughout the NFL, college football, NBA, all that stuff, and with especially in the NFL, we're seeing a lot of the officiating come into question here as of late. And at the same time, what's the other thing that's been coming more prominent now in this day and age in sports is sports gambling, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I think there's something there to be looked at. I think it's pretty obvious, and with the Super Bowl going to be in Las Vegas, I think we're gonna, and with betting as prominent and open in everybody's face as it is, I think we're about to see the shadiest Super Bowl of all time in terms of officiating. So and other things. So I think we've called in the credibility of NASCAR in the past. On this show, and I go over the history. We've seen a lot of questionable decisions that the sport has made in terms of officiating races and all that stuff. So, I think that's going to just bring it, if we see more stuff like this come into up to the forefront, I think, it's definitely something we're going to have to look out for. And that's just, the reality of our time right now with gambling. So, we talk about it. I mean, I mean, I would not say I'm a gambler per se, but every now and then it's nice to take some spare cash or disposable income and risk it on something that you feel could happen. So that's kind of my thing there. as far as sports betting goes, and it's interesting and all that stuff, but there's also a lot of downsides to it. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this affects the sport, as more companies. We've already seen with DraftKings 2311, and obviously in North Carolina they're going to be there, but also BetMGM is partnered up with RCR at different points. So we're going to see more of that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it affects the teams. I think definitely help bring in sponsorship, all that stuff. But then, like I said, it got to think about the integrity of the sport as more of these platforms get adopted and everything.
Yeah, the integrity of the sport we're talking about, especially in motorsports, has come into question in recent years. Whether, I mean, with NASCAR, I've said for many years, not only here on the GSP, but on other programs, the two hashtags or things I always say are NASCAR and their decision making, consistently inconsistent, and selective enforcement. And when you put gambling into play as well, that makes things really, really, it's a fine line to say the least. And then you brought it up, Josh, with the Super Bowl being in Vegas and all. That's something that we're going to see how that all works out. If you believe that Nudnik Aaron, he's basically telling you based on the logo of the Super Bowl who's going to be in the game. But that's Aaron. So other news in the world of NASCAR, Spencer Boyd, the former winner at Talladega in the Truck Series, announced a new team. He'll be racing for himself full time, and Chris Miller, called Freedom Racing Enterprises. Jeff Hammond will be the GM for the team. So that's a blast from the past to go and come back into the mix as running a team. A legendary crew chief, a guy that probably should get into the NASCAR Hall of Fame at some point because of having to deal with Darrell Waltrip. That alone probably makes him a Hall of Famer before you even get into the statistics that he has and the amount of wins and all the stuff. So this team came from the remains of GMS racing, so I don't think that'll be. I figure that they won't be the only team that takes the equipment from GMS, and then we'll hear similar to certain teams with Kyle Busch Motorsports as well, taking some of their equipment as well to try and make it early in the season. It the Truck Series has a feel of like 2009 or whatever in the Cup Series, when you had a bunch of new teams that came in, new small efforts that were just trying to go and make races. And then that was like during the Start and Park era, of course, but like Tommy Baldwin Racing started in 2009. They made the Daytona 500 with Scott Riggs. And there was other people like that over time. So I think the Truck Series is going to have a similar deal, since they have some good teams and good drivers, but the depth of the field has definitely been it's been cut off a bit with the loss of those two organizations. Try to go and Greg Eli or Ellie will be the crew chief, and his car chief Rick Bourgeois. They says that they've worked together for many years, so we'll see how that whole effort goes. So I mentioned all that with the NASCAR. Kyle Larson doesn't see himself competing in NASCAR past age 40. It's not really that shocking, based on a lot of things that Larson has said and his outside dealings
because now he owns the High Limit series with his brother-in-law Brad Sweet, which was the All-Star Circuit of Champions, Tony Stewart's All-Star Circuit of Champions. So he's running a sprint car series now. He races basically anything with wheels, 4 wheels. Kyle Larson not wanting to be in a cup car after age 40. You think about what Jeff Gordon said earlier in his career. He didn't think he was going to be competing past 40, but obviously he did. I think I might, you know what, I'm trying to remember offhand because he was a 93, he was 21. He went so 31, 41. Yeah, okay, yeah. I didn't for a minute there. I had to think about it. How long he went in his career. You know, Jimmy Johnson's back racing, albeit limited races. He's in his 40s. You know, Harvick. We're getting to a point where you have guys that are the older drivers, but then you have guys that grew up in a different era and they're like, we want to get out and experience other things. Cal Wells said Legacy Motor Club will have tier 1 relationship with Toyota. It's not shocking after being a tier 3 effort at Chevy, which is also not shocking based on where that organization, or at least the beginnings of that organization were. When Petty GMS, it was a Petty team, so they were not a top team. GMS comes in to post to go and help and save the team, and then Jimmy Johnson comes in to own and take over as the owner with Maury Gallagher. The Toyota move was a necessary move for them, and now they'll be in the same boat as Gibbs in 2311. I'm not sure how far the distribution, or if they're going to be getting cars as well from Gibbs, or if they're going to be building their own stuff. And the engines, of course, are TRD, so that's not a problem. But we'll see what happens with that. At least with Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek, they're expecting to be more competitive in 2024 after what was a pretty rough season in 2023. Kevin Harvick announced that the Cars Tour will be expanding to the West Coast. Of course, he's part owner of Kern County Speedway in Bakersfield, his hometown, and he's been doing late model races because of with Rodney Childers last year on his retirement tour. So he's and now being part owner of the Cars Tour, they're trying to expand and make it all over the country, which reminds me of the days of when they used to have late model stock divisions in multiple places, but then they'd go and come together and race at the big races like the Snowball Derby or the All-American 400 or, you know, the Winchester 400, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what they're trying to do. It'll be the pro late model category going over to the West Coast initially. And then because you have the Spears SRL series already there, so that's super late models. So they don't have pro late models there. So that'll be interesting how that all works out. Was that? Yeah. Bennett family of companies, which is Daddy's Money kind of deal with Austin Hill, announced a multi-year partnership. So whenever Austin Hill, whether for as long as he's in Xfinity, and then once he eventually moves up to Cup, he'll have that sponsorship there. Brad Perez, returning to Alpha Prime to race at CoTA, trying to get more races. And he's the reserve driver for Alpha Prime Racing in 2024. Josh Balicki, or no, I think I talked about that in the last episode. So that's NASCAR. Trying to get through some of the other news items. Williams extends their Mercedes power unit deal beyond 2026 to 2030. It's it's interesting year for them because Alex Albon, who knows what his situation will be, if he's going to stay at Williams or not. Logan Sargent has to perform or else he's going to lose his ride. So that's interesting there. And I think that's about all. So we'll go and move forward to week 18 of the NFL season. And I know you had a week, you've had an extra time off, Josh, and I know you expressed your feelings yesterday on Twitter X about the aftermath of what took place over the last 6 weeks of this season for the Jacksonville Jaguars. At one point, 8-3, leading the division by, I believe, 2 games, and now they're on the outside looking in with the loss to the Tennessee Tuxedos in the final game of the season, and the Houston Texans going and beating the Indianapolis Colts. D'Amico Ryan's former 49er defensive coordinator in his first year as Houston Texans head coach. C.J. Stroud likely locked up the offensive rookie of the year. I know Puka Nacua has an argument and he set a rookie record, but CJ Stroud is a quarterback. Since they make the MVP a quarterback award, CJ Stroud is a dynamic player, and he's going to be a problem in that division. So I'm going to let you go and say your piece. I figure it'll be therapeutic.
Yeah, I mean it's dog shit and it's downright shameful, and I don't know what to say. I think I said on this show that they wouldn't make the playoffs multiple times during that 4-game losing streak. And, I didn't want it to happen, but you could see it coming because they can't play physical football. They got out physical 3 weeks in a row by the AFC North, and that ultimately is what did them in. They had an offensive line that was ranked 29th going into this year, and they fell to 31st. They did nothing other than on the offense, other than trade for Calvin Ridley and him and trade or draft Anton Harrison and let Jawan Taylor go, who hasn't been that good on the Kansas City Chiefs this year. So that was the only change they made. They ran it back with basically almost the entirely same team and got the same record, but different result. In fact, they started out 2022 3-6 before the bye week, but then they finished the year 6-2. Well, they made the playoffs, and they started this year 6-2, and then went 3-6 to end the year and missed the playoffs. So I was worried. The reason why I kept saying they wouldn't make it is because last year, they went and won 5 in a row, and up until the Texans game this year in Houston, they had the same exact record opposite. So they had a complete inverse record. Every win that they had this year was mirrored by a loss last year. Every win that they had last year was mirrored by a loss this year, and that ended up being the case for the most part. And so it was almost an exact mirror flip from last year. And obviously, it's just shameful that they're in this position, and it was embarrassing to see and everything. And I mean, you want them to make the playoffs, and wanted them to see that, but then there's also a part of me that wanted to see them lose because it put a lot of the questions up into the forefront that I think if they made the playoffs would get them somewhat of a pass and somewhat of a thing of status that they would have, because if you make the playoffs with the same group of guys and they say they lose round one, well, we still know what the problems are, but they still have the status of being a playoff team that might shield certain people from criticism or getting the full brunt of the blame that they deserve. And to me, those people are, Trent Baalke and Press Taylor, and I think Peterson. So I think those three individuals, I think, deserve the blame for what happened this year. And, obviously Trevor Lawrence didn't play well and turned the ball over a lot, and there's a lot of questions there with that. But at the same time, he's also the reason why they're still competitive, because I think without them, they're not really a good team, and that's the issue. They're kind of stuck in this valley, where they're good enough to win some games, against mostly bad teams, but they can't beat the elite teams, and we saw that this year with the Chiefs. They lost. 49ers, they got their shit rocked. And then the Ravens they were competitive against, but ultimately, they had the same issues that they had all year. So, then, they also lost to the Browns, lost to the Bengals, and then they lost to the Titans. All three of those teams turned out to be very physical, which, the Jaguars lack the physicality to push people on both sides of the line, on offense line and defense line. So, just a unfortunate result there. So, today they announced that they fired Mike Caldwell and on defensive coordinator, and I guess that's the scapegoat there. And they also let go of most of the staff there. So, I gonna say I don't know if I necessarily agree with firing him, but I can't say I will miss him because defense definitely did collapse during the second half of the year, and definitely collapsed against the Monday night game, which we had live on this show. Definitely collapsed yesterday when they needed them to shore up against Derrick Henry and allowed Derrick Henry to have one last laugh against the Jags before he becomes a free agent this offseason. They gave up a lot of points, although some of it was due to turnovers against the Buccaneers. They gave up points against the Browns and allowed Joe Flacco to or contributed to Joe Flacco having a career renaissance. We'll get to him later there. So just a lot of bad that happened in the second half of the year, and we thought this team would be a playoff team, and they were in October and part of November. So shameful that they got here, and we'll have to see what else they do. And today they had the post-season press conference for Doug Peterson and the rest of the players, and Doug Peterson basically threw Trevor under the bus. And at the other side of that, he also said that he was okay with Press Taylor and was okay with the offensive line, and despite Luke Fortner, the center, getting pushed back on nearly every play, getting pushed back 3 yards on QB sneak, twirling around in the Ravens game, and just being the 33rd ranked center and out of 32 teams, according to Pro Football Focus, I think, and everything. He still said good things about Luke Fortner, but then Trevor, obviously pointing out the turnovers, which that's true, and then also said, maybe he can't handle the playbook, but we can't, we can't simplify it because then it'll become easy to stop by the other teams. So that's gonna be interesting, and I mean, I feel like Doug Peterson's already, we've already seen how it ended with the Eagles, and I think we're already there with the Jags. So, that's why I want to see him gone. But I think realistically, what will happen is he won't be gone, and I think they'll keep him around for another year, but they'll have to get somebody in that can hold them accountable, because clearly, he's in the bed with Press Taylor for whatever reason, and none of them are willing to either criticize each other or do the things that they need to do to fix the team and everything. So I think they gotta do something, and I don't know if firing the defensive coordinators enough. And I think, Trent Baalke ultimately did not help them. They did not, as obviously I said, they did not hire anybody else on offense besides, the two players that they swapped out. They swapped out Marvin Jones for Calvin Ridley and Anton Harrison or Juwan Taylor for Anton Harrison. So, they did those changes, but they didn't do anything else. They basically, ran it back, and they spent on salary, not salary cap, but the amount of salary that they had to pay out was 196 million, which was number one in the league, and they missed the playoffs. So that's bad. When you spend the amount of money this year and don't make it, that's bad. And the interior defensive line was also bad this year. Roy Robertson Harris is not a starting defensive tackle. He's a rotational player, and he's being paid starter level money. I think he's got to go. Foley Fatakowski wasn't really that good, and often I think he was injured a lot too. Davin Hamilton had a staph infection at some point before training camp or in the middle of training camp or something. So that's can't predict that happening or anything. So I think you got to give him a pass there. But otherwise, defensive linemen other than Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen weren't very good this year, and they didn't get any help on that side of the ball. They let Arden Key go, and they didn't pick up anybody. They had multiple chances throughout the offseason to pick up somebody, and they had an opportunity where they could have possibly traded for another defensive end on rotation like the 49ers did for Chase Young. They had an opportunity to pick up Jadeveon Clowney on defense. They had multiple opportunities to do that. They could have signed DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason to give them another guy at wide receiver that I think Trevor Lawrence needs for a big wide receiver that can go up and make the contested catches that the other wide receivers can't seem to do. They failed to do that. In short, to tie it back to the motorsports, it's exactly like the movie Cars, where we saw Lightning McQueen say no tires, just gas, and at the end he blew a tire on the final lap and ended up in a tie with Strip Weathers and Chick Hicks and everything there. So it's exactly, there's a YouTube clip, I'll have to send it to you, but they showed the scene where Lightning McQueen blew a tire and was frantically trying to make it to the finish line, and they just showed the Jags record progressively changing until they were tied with the Texans and the Colts there. So, and I was sent that by one of my friends, and I said that, the scene where he said no tires, just gas, is them in the off season deciding to run it back with nearly everybody on defense and coaching. So, and often, or the roster and coaching. So, I think they should fire Trent Baalke. I don't think he's done a good enough job with grabbing the fundamentals of this team. I think obviously the contracts show that they're too top heavy in certain areas, and they've invested a lot in the defense, and yet it's performed poorly over the course of his 3-year tenure. And the best player that they have on defense was actually drafted before he got there. So Josh Allen, of course, drafted in 2019, and we don't even know if he's going to come back because they decided to let him play on the 5th-year option and franchise tag. 5th-year option because they weren't sure how he was going to be as a player. So definitely disappointing to see, and they'll be playing on a second place schedule next year, and we'll just have to see how they find out how they're going to be next year, or in September. So gonna be a long off season, especially if they're already attacking Trevor in the press with what Peterson said today, and it's looking like it's going to be him versus the organization. So this off season, so we'll have to see what they do. Personally, I think you just don't extend him yet. I think it's hard to say that you can commit 150 million or whatever to him for that stuff. I don't know if it's worth it yet. So Unfortunately, they're going to have to, because they don't know yet, they're going to have to buy high. And that also means that they're going to have to figure out a way to build the team around him well, knowing that that might be coming. So that's going to be tough to see it play out. So we'll see. It's unfortunate. The Texans are the divisional winners, and people said, well, we thought the Jaguars would be the ones to run the division and everything. And people say that they want it to be easy and they would like it if CJ Stroud was out of the division on the Panthers. But I also say that having a tough divisional rival makes you better, and I would rather see them have that rival like that, and Colts with Anthony Richardson as well, and potentially the Titans with whoever they have with QBs. So I think it should be tough. Look at the AFC North, NFC West. I think those are the two toughest divisions in the NFL in terms of QB play and physicality on the offensive and defensive lines. So it's unfortunate, and I'm gonna have to tune out for a little bit on football and everything. Think it's a good thing, and obviously with motorsports coming back in a few weeks, we'll have something. And obviously, this is a motorsports first podcast, so we'll have the ability to delve our energies into that, and that's what we know best on here. So, hate to see it, but unfortunately, that is the result.
Yeah, plenty to go take in there. I'm sorry for your brother. It was really bad to watch it basically melt down. And we are seeing stuff similarly to the Philadelphia Eagles, because they're having a meltdown, which couldn't happen to a nicer team. And their connection between the Eagles and the Jacksonville Jaguars is that they were blown out by the San Francisco 49ers. And that was on their home field too, in both cases. The one thing that you said that was insane to me was Doug Peterson throwing his quarterback under the bus. The notion that you're going to throw Trevor Lawrence under the bus when he is a franchise quarterback, whether you agree that he is he's an elite or has a chance to be an elite quarterback or whatever, he played back, like whatever you want to say about that. He's the number one overall draft pick. The cons market based on Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen. That's really what it is. If he had went and said shit about Josh, he can't, because Josh Allen was at an elite all-pro level this year. But sure, Trevor Lawrence made mistakes. Sure, Trevor Lawrence probably did not play as well as he did last year in the second half to get them in the playoffs. But when you have a Swiss cheese offensive line, Travis Etienne, it impresses me more that Travis Etienne had the year that he had.
Yeah.
Because of how bad the lack of productivity from wide receivers, the terrible offensive line, terrible. I don't know what. Trent Baalke, it doesn't surprise me because he's got a history of being a mediocrity. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl, but when you start digging into what Doug Peterson is, he's an egomaniac. And for what he was, which was a backup quarterback in the league, being a ball handler for fucking a guy who's going to probably go and get indicted and go to a federal penitentiary, and Brett Favre. He's a hacky guy, He got sent out of Philly, and it's interesting with Philly because Howie Roseman's in there forever. You're going to have to start thinking that he's going to get to fire another coach here when Nick Sirianni and the Eagles eventually lose, which will probably come next Monday night. But I don't get, that is going scorched earth on your quarterback is probably like PR 101 on how not to keep a job. And when your offensive coordinator, who you were complaining about, I don't know how many you talked about multiple times this year, how bad he was doing a job. And you have Evan Ingram out there who's become a pretty solid tight end. You have one of the best running backs in the league. You have a quarterback who has all the potential in the world, but he's turned into like what Eli and Peyton turned into when there was any level of pressure. But then when you think about how bad the offensive line is, I can't blame him.
Yeah.
So it is a sad situation. It's a waste, really. And it opens the door, since now Houston is well ahead of schedule. And they're going to be hosting their usual 4:30 game on Saturday afternoon. I mean, it's scary. And Anthony Richardson, for what little time he was on the field this season, was
he looked
dynamic.
good.
He was a dynamic playmaker, and he has a lot of heart. And Indianapolis does have a future if they can keep him upright. He's got a lot of those same characteristics of the guy who's probably going to be a 2-time MVP here in a few weeks' time in Lamar Jackson. So it's kind of scary. You look at Tennessee with if they decide to go with Will Levis, he showed positive signs. You talked about DeAndre Hopkins, who's one of the best wide receivers for a long time.
He's a dog.
He went to Tennessee, which is kind of I mean, I guess they paid him the most money, but that's kind of like a weird thing. But then when he's sitting there with Will Levis, he's making plays. Yesterday, he's making plays with Ryan Tannehill. Dude still has it. That division is not going to be easy. Opening the door for Houston after basically being a rudderless ship for I don't know how many years. Indianapolis, which has had a lot of issues over time, but they're turning the corner. And I mean, Tennessee, who knows what's going to happen? Mike Vrabel, the rumors that are going around, may or may not be there, which may go and change things up. But it's a bad look for the Cons and for everybody in the top levels of that organization.
Yeah, I mean, I have more now that you have, like, because the Cons, like, he's not a bad owner per se, but I mean, he just doesn't understand like who to put in place to run the football team, and they need somebody above the general manager that can oversee that and everything. And I mean, he's not in the building every day. We know that, and I think the Steelers, what they do with their ownership, understanding you don't want David Tepper, who threw his drink in the crowd in Jacksonville on New Year's Eve. You don't want that. I mean, that type of passion. I mean, it's great that he's passionate, but that's on toxic level. But at the same time, you don't want somebody that doesn't really understand, and when it comes to that stuff. And that's the thing, is like they should have fired Trent Baalke when they fired Urban, and they should have cleaned house when even before Trevor got there. They should have just wiped everybody out, but they kept Trent Baalke in because he was the like assistant pro personnel, whatever you want to call it, under Dave Caldwell, and they kept him for that. And now he's still tied, and they decided not to let him go, and now we're here and everything. And I mean, who knows what they look like without Trent Baalke? But they just never clean house entirely, and they keep leaving one remnant after another. So that's what it is. And then you mentioned the play calling and all that stuff. I mean, it's a freaking science experiment. That they always run these cutesy level plays. They ran in the fourth quarter. They ran a direct snap to ETN that would have been a first down at the 4-yard line, but then it got called back to a penalty, and I was like, why the fuck do you call that? Even though it technically worked. It didn't work, but even though it worked, in theory, like, it still got called back because of a holding, a guy who couldn't tackle the punter at the end of the first half, who doesn't have the strength. I mean, I don't even know if he can, should have threw him out after that, because, he can't have the strength to tackle a damn punter. But, they have that play, and when and then on the goal line, they go third down, play action pass with running back 2 and tight end 3 in there and on the goal line because they can't run the ball up the middle. And then fourth down, Trevor has to audible to a sneak because whatever play they had in there, he didn't trust. So that's the play calling. They have all these trick plays that they have, and there are no easy button plays where there are no layups where like, okay, it's this play down and distance. We can call this and get, this look and run the play. We know exactly what we're going to do. It's like every play has to be hard. It's like they're fighting for their lives in every play, whether it's on offense or defense. So, that's why I don't like the philosophy. And I'll say it again. I said it before. The Jaguars' identity is 4-3 defense and run the ball. Fred Taylor, Reese Jones-Drew, throw in Fournette if you want. They're all good running backs. And, they had 4-3 defense. That's what they had in the 90s, mid-2000s, and 2017. That's what works. None of this 3-4 crap where we drop back Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker into coverage. None of that. I don't want that anymore. Just rush the damn passer and sack him and, make tackles. I don't understand why you can't do that. And so hopefully we see something different. But, I think, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. That's all I can say.
That might be that this probably is in the top 3 for sure of the most passionate we've gotten you here. So it's a great way to start 2024 season 5 of this show that you've done a Mad Dog Russo level kind of rant here. I think this will definitely help with your health. It's great for us that we got to hear a full breakdown of the Jaguars organization. But the one thing, I mean, now you gave me 2 things. One is Trent Baalke. That motherfucker is one of the dumbest people alive. He was the Niners general manager for God knows how many years. And we're talking about Jim Harbaugh, who is trying to win a national championship. Trent Baalke got chosen by Jed York. He kept Trent Baalke instead of Jim Harbaugh after Jim Harbaugh had led the 49ers to 3 consecutive NFC championship games and an 8-8 season in 4 years as the head coach. They keep Trent Baalke and they proceed to become a laughingstock of an organization until Jed York, somebody decided to fuck him in the mouth and the ass and say, hey, you need to go and hire somebody who has a clue. And he hires somehow or another in some way, some goddamn miracle in one fell swoop. Kyle Shanahan, albeit he was part of blowing the Super Bowl with Atlanta, 28-3, and John Lynch decide they want to come together, and we're where we're at now. Yes, a lot of pain, a lot of things happen, but if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I'd still be watching football. I mean, I probably would be because I love the game, but I would not justify being a 49er fan. That's for damn sure. But that's what it is. That's his history. Bad choices of coaches, bad choices in drafts. He's basically saved by Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, and it doesn't take, you're gonna wash. It's a wash with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that's literally all you have to show for however many years you've been at the helm. So and after that, who the fuck do you have? That's a contributor. He goes and picks guys that are projects and have torn ACLs, and he must be praying to some god or somebody who probably is connected with like Aaron doing the ayahuasca, thinking that these ACLs will come back in like magic. The guy's an idiot stick. He doesn't know how to evaluate talent, and then you don't bother to make fixes in the places where you need to. And then Doug Peterson is basically, his whole career in coaching is based on Philly. His whole career is based on that one play. Yes, they beat Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl. I got to watch that game, one of the greatest games ever. I was there live, whatever. I'll keep on saying it until the end of time. I don't care. I'm never going to go to another NFL game more than likely, unless something comes off. But that was a great game, and he did a good job that game. But it also helps that you had Big Dick Nick Foles playing at a level that has been rarely seen since in general. The amount of things that had to fall into place for that to come off, and that's his whole career. Being a ball licker and a ball handler for Brett Favre and sucking as a Philadelphia Eagles starter and as a player, then being the coach and then getting run by Howie Roseman because he started having issues with Carson Wentz. The difference is this ain't Carson Wentz. Trevor Lawrence is a guy who definitely has the capabilities to be a long-time starter. And if they're going to have people, if you're not going to work towards working with him, I don't think that's a recipe for keeping a job. But we'll see what happens with that. On the flip side, the 49ers lose to the LA Rams. The LA Rams, all 7 of their fans celebrate like it was some sort of amazing accomplishment when basically the vast majority of people on the 49ers roster were not playing. And Darnold played all right. Jake Moody misses an extra point and a field goal, which is a kind of a problem. Did the same shit in Cleveland when that losing streak started. So that's not a good thing, being that he was their number 1 draft pick this year. Cleveland Farrell gets hurt, but it doesn't sound like it's as serious as originally thought. Otherwise, they get through the game unscathed. Yes, I wanted to see them win that game just because it's LA. They let Puka Nacua get his record, fine, whatever. Losing to Carson Wentz is weak, but, it is what it is. They're still the number 1 seed. They're going to have a week off here. Get to watch the playoffs. Christian McCaffrey, all these guys that set records this year. Christian McCaffrey's rushing champion. Brock Purdy, all the different passing records he set. All most yards ever for a 49er quarterback. You have George Kittle going over 1,000 yards and his smoking hot wife being smoking hot. I just love looking at Claire Kittle. She is such a piece of ass. But and so is Christian Juszczyk, for that matter, even though she's a part of the itty bitty titty committee. But then you got Brandon Ayuk playing at a high level. You have Deebo Samuel playing at a high level. You got the offense. And they started giving run to Elijah Mitchell, and you had JaMychal Hasty, so the running back core is getting deeper at the right time. The offensive line, on the other hand, not so much. That's a bit of a concern. Defensive line, they do have those 2 bookends in Nicholas John Bosa and Chase Young. Cleveland Farrell is part of that rotation. So that right there, they got solid. Javon Hargrave came back. The fact that Eric Armstead hasn't, kind of concerning, but the extra week off, hopefully he'll be able to. Linebackers, Warner and Dre Greenlaw out there. Javon Kinlaw played a whole season, which is a fucking miracle. In terms of the secondary, there are some concerns, but they've had good play. Mooney Ward is one of the best DBs, period, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Ever since he's come to San Francisco, he's taken a massive step forward and become so much better compared to where he was when he was in Kansas City. So we'll see how that all works. The secondary was a concern when the Niners made the Super Bowl. The last 2 times they made the Super Bowl, the secondary was kind of a concern. But we'll see how it goes with that. And with the week off, they're hoping to get all these guys back that they need. The core, 24 that they started the year with, or 22, I mean, sorry, 24. In the other games that took place yesterday, I mean, the big one was the AFC East battle for the division. It worked out. Where both the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins were going to ended up making the playoffs. I mean, Miami was already in. Buffalo Bills, with the results earlier in the day, ended up making the playoffs before they even had to play. There were certain scenarios where if they had lost the game, they were going to miss the playoffs prior to all the stuff that went on, aided largely by the meltdown by Jacksonville. But Buffalo, Josh Allen had 3 turnovers, but when it counted, Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He went and took the team down the field. They go and get the go-ahead score. Taylor Rapp, who I think was hiding somewhere, was I think working at Target or some shit. I don't know. Came out of nowhere after all these injuries on the secondary, gets a massive interception on Tua Tagovailoa, and basically seals the game for them in that spot. So the Buffalo Bills are now the number 2 seed. They will have at least one home playoff game and probably 2. If anything, they're going to be hosting Kermit the Frog, which will be nice considering that bastard has been able to play at home his whole entire career. It'll be nice to actually see him have to play on the road. When you consider the TV coverage, he's going to be on the road essentially because it's on Peacock. So if you don't have Peacock, you're SOL, unless you're going to do the illegal streaming thing, but who knows? Oh, he got that one. Man, Michael Penix finally gets a big pass there.
Michael Penis Jr.
Yeah. He's a weird looking dude. He kind of looks like Josh Dobbs, but he's got a big arm. Oh, they call a holding, of course. But yeah, so Buffalo's the number 2 seed. They're going to end up hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers, who won on Saturday while they rested a bunch of their players, the Ravens. Steelers get that victory, and it started the process for them to get into the playoffs. Omar Epps gets into the playoffs again, which is unbelievable considering how bad they were on offense just a couple of months ago. They fire Matt Canada and then, have other issues at quarterback. You have, for whatever reason, Mason Rudolph decided to figure out how to play football all of a sudden. And they're in, but the likelihood of them lasting past this weekend is very slim. We'll get into it more detail later on, though. Cowgirls destroyed Washington, which we all knew was going to happen, and they get the number 2 seed in the NFC. On the flip side of that, the Philadelphia Eagles were down 24-0 to the New York Giants. Were giving up touchdowns to both Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito, and by the time they, in the second quarter, Sirianni's pulling the plug on a bunch of players. Jalen Hurts hurt his middle finger. We were talking about integrity and in the game and how, with sports betting, I really thought that somebody's on the take because it's Philly, somebody's got a gun to somebody's head with how bad they played. Because I'm like, this isn't possible. This team was 10-1 6 weeks ago or whatever the hell. And yeah, the Niners anally annihilated them, which they deserved for all the shit they talk and other stupid fans. But what the hell? Are you telling me that Nick Sirianni's a moron? I mean, to be fair, the McAfee show goofed on him and Ty Schmidt goofed on him for how stupid he sounded during his opening press conference. And maybe he is a fucking goofball, but how this has imploded is unbelievable. And I honestly thought somebody's on the take, that they're just going and laying an egg. You had a chance to win that game. If Dallas loses, you get the number 2 seed. You don't even show up anywhere, and you're now going to be on the road playing Baker Mayfield's Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you get to play on Monday night. So all the Philly fans that are basically on suicide watch are like, what the fuck? Why didn't you just put us on Sunday night so we can get the season over with? Instead, we're on Monday night. So we'll see. Vegas wins. They should hire Antonio Pierce. If they don't, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me because Mark Davis didn't hire Rich Bisaccia either. But this would be even more egregious because Antonio Pierce has probably been the most compelling, worthwhile coach the Raiders have had in decades. Kermit the Frog didn't play for Kansas City, but they still won. Green Bay wins over Chicago. It was ugly, but they got there and they get into the playoffs. Seattle wins, but wasn't enough. They get knocked out of the playoffs. The New Orleans Saints blow out the Atlanta Falcons. Jameis Winston audibles on a kneel down.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
to
Jameson Williams no, that's wide receiver Jamal Williams. Yeah.
Audibles to score a touchdown, and then Arthur Smith, in one of his last acts as the Atlanta Falcons head coach, goes and yells at Dennis Allen. And it's funny that Dennis Allen, there's signs in the Superdome of Fire Allen, and they somehow or another were winning games there, but Arthur Smith finally gets fired. He's like a big oaf version of Jeff Fisher with how bad of an offense he calls. The way that he completely neutered Bijan Robinson. I'm gonna have PTSD from that game when we were playing against each other in the quarterfinals, and Bijan Robinson basically was not there. You drafted the guy 8 overall, and you're not giving him the ball. You have Kyle Pitts, who's one of the more athletic tight ends in the NFL. You're not giving him the ball. You're giving the ball to Jonnu Smith. And then you have Drake London, who's one of the best young wide receivers in the league, and you're not throwing him the ball. You have Desmond Ridder, who borders one at times as a NFL quarterback and other times looking like he should be giving out Gatorade at the UFL. And then Taylor Heineke. I mean, what the hell are you doing? That is just so bad. I'm glad. I mean, and Arthur Smith's Daddy's Money character anyways, his dad runs FedEx, so fuck him. He can go to hell. And what is likely the end of Bill Belichick's tenure in New England. I don't believe it's the end of his coaching career. I think he's going to get another gig with all the different openings that are there. There's 5 openings as of now. There's probably going to be at least 1 more or maybe 2 more. He gets blown out. First time in 16 games they lose to the New York Jets. So Bob Saleh gets to leave on a positive note. It was a snow game, so there really wasn't a whole hell of a lot that happened there. Detroit goes and wins against the Vikings. They lose Sam Laporta, though, to a knee injury. Not like out for the year, but it is a relatively serious injury, so something we're going to have to look out for the playoffs. And then Joe Flacco wasn't in. A lot of the guys for the Browns did not play, so Cincinnati took advantage of that and won. Tampa Bay, it won ugly and won the division. Carolina ends up locking up the number 1 pick, but oh yeah, that's right. Carolina traded their pick to the Chicago Bears, and that's a big play there.
Touchdown for Michigan.
Blake Corum scores a touchdown, and now it's a 2-possession game with 7 minutes to go in the national championship game. Carolina's got a lot of soul searching to do. Their organization, they have an owner who's the new Daniel Snyder, and who the hell is really going to want to work for him, considering what has transpired so far in his ownership tenure, David Tepper. Houston mentioned winning the game, beating Indianapolis, getting the division, and Pittsburgh as well. So, all right, let's get into the playoff matchups here. And so we'll start with the NFC. So the Cowgirls with Mike McCarthy will be playing against his former team, the Green Bay Packers. Matt LaFleur gets in with Jordan Love and company, so that'll be one matchup, the 2-7. The 3-6 matchup is one of the matchups that the NFL probably wanted to see. The Detroit Lions hosting their first home playoff game since 1991 or something, or 93 or some shit like that. They're gonna, I think, 91 was last time they won the division. 93 was last time they hosted a home playoff game. They're going to be hosting Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams. So that will be an interesting matchup for sure. And then I'm trying to get the schedule for the playoff games for Super Wild Card Weekend or whatever. I'll have to go and look that up in a minute. But that's the 3-6 matchup, and then the 4-5 matchup, as I mentioned, is going to be on Monday Night Football. I think the Detroit LA game is on Sunday Night Football, and then the Monday Night Football game is going to be Tampa Bay and Philly. And then San Francisco, of course, is on the bye. Ravens are on the bye. In the AFC, Buffalo will be the number 2 seed over and have Pittsburgh come into Orchard Park. The Miami Dolphins meltdown and all the injuries that have taken place for them in recent weeks. They went from the number 2 seed, possibly the number 1, their losing streak, and now their gift for making the playoffs and losing to the Buffalo Bills is they get to go and play against Kermit the Frog in Arrowhead. So good luck with that. The Texans and the Browns, of course, the Texans are in their usual 4:30 Saturday slot. Joe Flacco and the Browns come in, one of the best defenses in the NFL this year with Jim Schwartz. And that offense has been dynamic under Joe Flacco. It almost is like 2012 all over again. And they'll be playing against C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson and the Houston Texans. So yeah, those are the matchups there. NFL TV playoff schedule. So Super Wild Card Weekend, Browns and Texans. Then at 4:30, then they'll have 8 o'clock. The Peacock streaming game will be
Chiefs
Dolphins.
and Dolphins, right?
Yeah, so that'll be that one. Steelers Bills will be the 1 o'clock game on CBS on Sunday, and then the Packers Cowboys game will be at 4:30. The Rams Lions at 8 o'clock on the 4:30 game on Fox. 8 o'clock game Sunday Night Football on NBC, and then the Monday Night Football game is Eagles and Buccaneers, as you said previously. So I guess we'll start with the Browns and the Texans. Personally, I like the Houston Texans because of D'Amico Ryans. I'm rooting for them. C.J. Stroud, for all the shit he took during the draft process, has played at a very high level. And he should be the offensive rookie of the year. I mean, it's basically between him and Puka Nacua for the offensive rookie of the year. So as Penix makes a big throw there. But that defense, the Cleveland defense, is really, really tough. And Joe Flacco has had a renaissance. I think it's going to be hard for Houston to fade that and stop that offense and then try to make plays against that defense, even though for as good as CJ Stroud has been this year. Personally, I think Cleveland will win that game and likely advance to play the Baltimore Ravens, which could manifest itself. I'm trying to manifest Joe Flacco and Cleveland beating the Baltimore Ravens in the divisional round, which would make me very happy. But we'll see what happens with that. What are you thinking, Josh, in regards to that game?
For Cleveland and Houston?
Yeah.
So I mean, we've already seen this game a couple weeks ago, albeit it was without CJ Stroud. The Texans were starting their backup QB because Stroud was out with a concussion, and of course Joe Flacco went on and had a game, and that was, I mean, go back to our fantasy. I had Flacco and Amari Cooper that week, and still wasn't enough to win because the guy I was facing had Breece Hall. But I mean, it's gonna be different because they obviously have a game each. Both teams have a game of film against the other. They can go back and study and figure out how to improve. But I mean, really, this is going to be an extension of Super Bowl picks. But I mean, I think I'm just going to pick the Browns to go all the way. Like, this has been one of the more disgusting seasons that we've seen in the NFL. Not just because of the Jags, but just in general. With all the, stuff that has happened this season. In regards to QB play's been off the board across the league. Defensive play is up. We've seen a lot of backup quarterbacks come in and have success. With Flacco, Jake Browning, Gardner Minshew, of course, and other QBs around the league. So yeah, I think the Browns have the ability to go all the way with somehow Joe Flacco career renaissance here. And the Browns also have the number one defense in the league. Myles Garrett, of course, the anchor there on defense, defensive end, defensive line. So, yeah, I mean, I know CJ Stroud's, really good, obviously. And as, I think where Jaguars fans want Trevor Lawrence to be ultimately, in only his rookie year. But, I think it's going to be a tough test for him, especially, and he's also down his wide receiver one in Tank Dell. So there's an issue there, but the Browns have a good defense and everything. So yeah, I'm going to go Cleveland here in this game, and ultimately I'm trying to project that I think the Browns have the potential to go all the way and just take the Browns to the bowl. Just do it.
Which would be the first time that the Cleveland Browns have ever made the Super Bowl. I know somewhere someone had said one of these shows talked about the Browns and the Lions making it, which would be two teams that have never made the Super Bowl playing against each other, which would be insane, especially when you consider the Cleveland and Detroit fan bases going to Las Vegas. But we'll see what happens with that. The Kansas City-Miami game, it's Kermit the Frog at home. Yes, they lost games this year. They've not been the same team by any means. You have, oh boy, that was a absolute duck. And they're going to call a PI. And Penix got nailed too, so they might go and call a personal foul as well on that. He's hurt. He got nailed I think he got nailed in the kidneys. But I mean, I have a hard time believing that Miami, with all the injuries they have and the way they ended the season, even with Tyreek Hill making a return to Kansas City, wanting to beat them, even with Miami's running game, I don't think they're going to be able to control time of possession, which is the way to go and keep Mahomes off the field. Even the fact that Mahomes doesn't have anybody outside, he has Kelsey has regressed. I don't know, other than banging Taylor Swift, why he's turned into what he's turned into. He has the one wide receiver, the rookie wide receiver, and then nobody else. Oh boy. The Chiefs, that defense, and that is
That a
The
pick six?
it almost was. The Kansas City Chiefs defense has been playing at a high level. Another defensive coordinator, another guy who used to be a head coach, Steve Spagnuolo. Probably the best the Kansas City Chiefs defense has been in all this time during this run that Patrick Mahomes and Andrew Ryan have been on. So the whole Harbaugh family's there. 4.5 minutes to go. Likely field goal at a minimum. Probably gonna, ice the game here. And honestly, Kansas City. I mean, Gavin is family, but I don't think they have it. I don't think they're gonna be able to. Stranger things have happened. Teams that have been leaking oil go and somehow or another put it together. Baltimore Ravens, bringing up Joe Flacco, did that. 12 years ago, and they just scored. That is it. Jim Harbaugh, for all the people that say that he can't win big games, he beat Alabama ugly, or they didn't say it was a score. He's down at the 1-yard line. Blake Corum. So they're going to do some sort of version of the bump and run, the tush push here with what's his face, McCarthy, and I put the game away. And so Kansas City, that's my pick. What are you thinking on that one, Josh?
I mean, this one's a coin flip, honestly, because the Chiefs have been struggling this year on offense, like we said, and they've been struggling. I mean, the Andy Reid, we talked about Doug Peterson earlier, but Andy Reid coaching tree hasn't really been doing well this year as a whole, and we're seeing Mahomes look a lot. He's not getting away with the stuff that he's gotten away with, for most of his career now, and lacking wide receivers other than Travis Kelce and everything. And also on the other end, you have Miami, who has they have a good defense on some parts. Jalen Ramsey over there now, and on defensive line they've had some injuries as well. Tua's kind of a question mark. I still feel like in some points, obviously they threw a pick that cost them the game last night against the Bills and everything. So you got that, and then you have all the wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, and everything. So this could be a shootout, or it could be a very low scoring game. But I'm going to say that the Chiefs ultimately end up winning this game. I think they will figure out enough to win the game at home. And I think the Miami Dolphins, even though they're kind of the 49ers light, I think they're not quite on the same level as the 49ers, even though maybe some of their players are maybe more dynamic than the players on the 49ers. So you might take Brock or Tua over Brock Purdy maybe, and maybe Tyreek Hill over Ayuk or Brandon or Deebo Samuel, but I think in other areas, I think the 49ers are a lot better team, and that's what they're kind of. I mean, you can see that they're trying to be like the 49ers in terms of structure and roster construction and all that, but I think they're just not quite on that level, and that's why they've lost the games that they're in. That's why they're not playing at home, as a divisional champion, and that's why they're playing on the road. So I'm not really a Kansas City fan, and the whole Swift thing, is very annoying. I mean, as pretty as she is and all that stuff, it's overblown and all that. I mean, you can say that, I think, objectively and stuff and everything, but I think she gets a playoff win for her boys, so and everything, and I do kind of want to see Mahomes go on the road, and that would be a rematch of the AFC Championship game from 2020 and 2021, so divisional round, but it would be in Buffalo this time, which will be a bit different environment than in Kansas City for sure.
Yeah, that'll be cool to finally see Kermit the Frog play a road game going against one of his rivals in Josh Allen, Professor J, seeing if he can function for that long, because how much he's going to be marking out if that game actually happens. which I think is pretty likely. So that's Saturday. On Sunday afternoon, the Steelers and the Bills. A game where the Bills have been nearly unbeatable, 7-1. Faces Steelers 4 times, and he's gone 3-1. In those games, forecasts in Buffalo, sub-freezing temperatures and possible snow. So when you consider the dynamics of the Bills and their passing game, it may not be as dynamic, but Josh Allen runs like a freaking Mack truck. And then they have James Cook, and now they have playoff Lenny as well, running the ball. So how can the Steelers hold up against that three-headed running monster? I don't think so. And if it became a shootout, can Pittsburgh stay with that? I don't care that they have a couple of pretty solid wide receivers and Pickens and Deontay Johnson. I know they have 2 running backs, but Mason Rudolph having to go on the road, play that game, Omar Epps against a longtime rival compatriot and Sean McDermott. McDermott here wants to go and make something happen. All signs point to the Buffalo Bills here. To me, I was thinking that the Bills would be the pick out of the AFC, and I'm going to pick that. So I'll go and make a Super Bowl prediction here. The Buffalo Bills will be my choice. They'll win this game on Sunday afternoon, and they will also make it to Las Vegas. Josh, I'll go to you next here, and what are you thinking for that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously I said Kansas City wins to go possibly play Buffalo in the playoffs, and I think Buffalo pulls this one out. I think, they figured something out, and, I think for once Josh Allen isn't the one winning the games on him, on his own. The Buffalo Bills, they finally found some balance. It looks like running the ball with James Cook. Pittsburgh Steelers obviously gifted into the playoffs by the virtue of Jacksonville losing. Obviously, Mike Tomlin's a tough coach, and he knows how to get what he can out of his teams and everything. But it's just hard to see a Mason Rudolph led team go into Buffalo and win a playoff game. But stranger things have happened. But just hard to see that take place. So I think this is an easy take here.
So that's the AFC side. We'll swap over to the NFC and the battle, the McCarthy Bowl. Mike McCarthy's Dallas Cowgirls. He lost to them in 2022. The Green Bay Packers in his only meeting so far, and he'll be facing them on Sunday afternoon. It'll be Matt LaFleur gets another playoff appearance. Jordan Love will make his first playoff appearance. They've got injuries in key areas. Their defense is basically non-existent. They're going to Dallas. Dallas is virtually unstoppable at home. They even get gifts from referees when they should have lost against Detroit. But Josh, you can go first. I'm going to let you go first on the NFC side. What say you on the number 2, the 2-7 matchup on the NFC side?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one because the Green Bay Packers, they've been ascending actually, and it's kind of a surprise, but they've kind of come on as of late. And Dallas is another one of those middle teams that can 1 week they can look really good, and the next one they look completely at the lunch. And we see all that against Buffalo. They came to Buffalo and lost, but then they go down, and they went down into Florida and lost to the Dolphins. But then we've seen them take care of business, in other games. So this year, but I think McCarthy loses his former team in Dallas and loses his former team in Green Bay. So I think Jordan Love pulls it out. Matt LaFleur goes in there and puts an excellent game plan together, and they run the ball with Aaron Jones against the Dallas defense and everything. I think it'll be a close game, but I think, yeah, Green Bay comes out. I think they'll be the one wild card team on the NFC that comes out with the win.
For a while I've thought that in thinking about this game, I've been leaning Green Bay, but I'm going not because I believe in Mike McCarthy's coaching, because he is hacky. Not because Dakota Prescott is clutch, which he's not. My thinking, and it's probably against my better judgment, is the way they play at home, the way that defense plays. Micah Parsons been talking so much trash all year, being a bitch ass on podcasts, but then when you have to actually make plays, he's nowhere to be found. Now you can make the case that he's getting held the same way as Nick Bosa does. Maybe not. But that defense against Green Bay, the Green Bay wide receiver core has been getting beaten up, a lot of injuries. So will Jordan Love have the time? Will Jordan Love be able to have enough weapons? The running game, I think, is a equalizer if they can go and get that going. But the Green Bay defense is atrocious. And that if you're going to, Prescott's played at such a high level at home that if they're allowed to kind of just run roughshod, CeeDee Lamb has made a big step in his career. So I'm going against my, what I originally thought. I was thinking Green Bay, but I'm going to go with the Cowgirls getting a victory, a rare playoff victory against the Green Bay Packers. So then the game, I think, which is probably the game of the week, the one that is going to get the most coverage, is the Fighting Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions versus Matthew Stafford in his return to Detroit to play his former team, the team that drafted him number 1 overall, the team that he, along with Calvin Johnson, brought to the playoffs multiple times, but were unable to win a playoff game. He gets to go and play his former team as Jim Harbaugh. They tried to get him with the Gatorade, but they did a terrible job with it, and he jukes out of there. He still has moves in his 50s somehow, some way. He's getting held. Oh no, it's Sherrod. They take the last sneeze, so now they have one. He misses. He doesn't get Gatorade bath, but he is now a national champion. An asterisk, if you want, for people that don't like Jim Harbaugh, but the Michigan Wolverines are the national champions of college football, Division I college football, whatever. What do they call the FBS? Whatever the hell. Michigan, you're champions. So every Ohio State fan or Ohio State player in history probably vomiting right now. In Washington, valiant effort, but not enough. Michael Penix wasn't able to make enough plays. Their defense couldn't hold up against the Michigan offense. So 34-13, the final. Michigan, your national champs. Jim Harbaugh, likely his final game. Oh, they've got him this time. We missed the Gatorade bath this time. They must have held him or something, or maybe John arranged it or something. But they win there. So the Rams-Lions game, Sean McVay going and getting the Rams back in the playoffs after what was an off year last year. First home playoff game for Detroit in 30 years. Lions, a huge game for Jared Goff, going against a team that he was drafted number 1 overall by, and got them, was part of taking him to a Super Bowl. But then they ended up dumping him off. Josh, I'll let you go first on this one, of course. Does Matthew Stafford go into his own old stomping grounds at Ford Field and take the victory, or does the Fighting Dan Campbells last for another week and get a rematch? In my case, I say a rematch of the controversial game from a couple of weeks ago against Dallas. Mute.
Yeah, sorry, I guess I made that mistake too. But
Yeah.
no, I think Detroit pulls this one out. I mean, Los Angeles is an interesting one because we didn't really see Los Angeles really returning quite yet. Matt Stafford had a down year, but he's quietly had a really good year. He's made some of the best throws in the league, and you can honestly say he was a top 5 quarterback this year in this league. But I think Detroit's a more physical team though right now compared to LA, and I like what they're doing. I think this is this is a good team. I think Dan Campbell, he's a good coach. They're obviously had a chance to be seated higher versus the victory against Dallas or loss against Dallas, but it is what it is. But Jahmyr Gibbs and that running back that they have in Detroit, they're pretty good. Jared Goff is good enough. I think Sam Laporta is out with an injury right now, but he's still a good player, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is a really good wide receiver as well, and you've had him on fantasy at least a few times here over the years, so that was a good pickup by you. But LA on the other hand, they Stafford of course, but Puka Nacua on offense, he's been really good as well. Cooper Kupp, always good as well, but I think Detroit's just a better team right now, so I'm gonna pick Detroit. And I mean, my sleeper pick in the Super Bowl is Detroit versus Cleveland. I think that could be possible. So two of the more maligned teams in history of the league playing each other in the Super Bowl, that could be interesting. But I don't know if Detroit quite has the firepower to go up against San Francisco like that. So we'll see. But I'm going to pick Detroit winning in this one.
And I mean, I like the story with Detroit, and they've had one of the biggest years in their franchise history. You talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown and wide receiver core. Jahmyr Gibbs was part of my fantasy team that I won a league with, along with Puka Nacua. So there's both sides of that deal. I don't know why. It's the same kind of feeling. It may be my Homer fandom and kind of wanting to see certain chaos. I'd rather see Detroit win so that they get to play against Dallas again in Dallas, and all the controversy that would come with that. But the way that the Rams have been playing, they're playing, and you're getting a pretty healthy team. You get Cooper Kupp fully functional, which isn't very often. You're going to have Aaron Donald rested. Their running game with Kyron Williams, he's one of the best young running backs in the league. And, it's not because I want to see it happen. Believe me, I do not want to see this happen. But I think the Rams are going to go, and Matthew Stafford goes to Detroit and continues to keep the Detroit Lions without a playoff win since 1993. I'm going to go and say the Rams, and in the process, well, in that case, the Rams would end up going to Dallas to play, and then in my case, and so I think that's what it is, or I don't know, if Detroit wins, they'd go play Dallas. If LA wins, then they'd go to play San Francisco again, I think is how it is. So, well, Bill picks the LA Rams. I'm trying to, that's what it is. Because if I pick, Dallas would, and the Rams and Dallas would end up playing, more than likely whoever wins the fourth, they would win whoever play against the 4-5 matchup. So let's go with that. Tampa Bay at home, winning the division for a third year in a row. They will host the Philadelphia Eagles, scuffling Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go with it. We brought up the Eagles multiple times during your your what do you call Mad Dog Russo level diatribe against your Jacksonville Jaguars. So does somehow or another does Philly, after going and imploding over the last 6 weeks, somehow or another come through on the road against Tampa in the new sombrero? Or does Baker Mayfield get a playoff, another playoff win? Because he did win a playoff game with the Cleveland Browns, lest we forget. Will he take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the second round of the playoffs? Ever since they won the Super Bowl, it's been pretty rare. Or they won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady, sorry. But other than that, and other than their other Super Bowl appearance when they won, playoff victories have been few and far between for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers franchise. But what say you on the Monday night game?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because, for most of the year, the Eagles, they have not been, they were the number one team, and then San Francisco overtook them and everything. And, the Bucs, on the other hand, have kind of been win-loss, uneven throughout the season, but they found something late in the going. And, come to think of it, this is the second time in 2 years that the Eagles are going to be playing as the wild card team in Tampa. 2021, they got blown out in the first game with Jalen Hurts as the starter, with Nick Sirianni going up against Tom Brady, and what was going to be his final one of his final playoff games before he retired the first time. And now they play again here. And it's also interesting because, when Baker Mayfield did win that playoff game in 2020, and they won in Pittsburgh. In 2020, Pittsburgh started out hot, and then they kind of collapsed as the year went on, and ended up, I think, going from the 1 to the 3. And then Cleveland, they were able to kind of blow them out initially, and then I think Pittsburgh kind of mounted a comeback, but Cleveland was already so far ahead it didn't even matter. And so it's interesting now that Baker is starting in this game, and he's going up against the other Pennsylvania team in the Eagles, and the Eagles are also on their own collapse, going from falling from the number one down to out in the wild card. So I do think, though, that the Eagles, they get it together. I think they win. I think Tampa Bay, they've had a good year. They've got Mike Evans. They still got basically all the guys minus Tom Brady, but I just don't think their secondary, they just haven't played that well over the year. Their rushing defense isn't that great either. So I think the Eagles finally figure it out, and they go and win a playoff game on the road to kind of salvage what the year has been so far.
And if that were to take place, Philly would end up going against what is it? You have Green Bay, so yeah, Green Bay would end up going to San Francisco, and Philly would go to Detroit. Detroit did play the Philadelphia Eagles earlier in the season. It was a close matchup. I think it was Philly did win that game, but Detroit was in a different time there, and Philly was as well. Philly Phil picks. It works out here. So we were 3 for 3, agreed on all 3 on the AFC side, and we went up. We're going opposite on all 3 games in the NFC side. So I'm gonna say Baker Mayfield gets the victory, or with Tampa Bay, they get the victory on Monday Night Football, and as the number 4 seed, they will go and play the Dallas Cowgirls, and then the Rams end up playing the 49ers, which would be something because of how close those teams are in a lot of ways. The whole Shanahan-McVay thing. The last time they faced each other in the playoffs, the Rams won, and went and won the Super Bowl. The Niners, until yesterday, basically held over on them in the regular season. So that would be something. So we deviated on the NFC side. We agreed on the AFC side. So that is that. We'll see what happens next week. We'll definitely talk about who went where and what goes on in the divisional round. Talked about it. So, Josh, it's your time. Sim segment time. First time in 2024. What's going on in the world of iRacing?
Yeah, I mean, I think this week iRacing. I think I would like to try to enter into the Rolex 24 for the 24 hours, which the iRacing 24 hours is in 2 weeks from now. So into the end of next week, 19th through the 21st, is the iRacing 24-hour special event for Daytona. So I might be looking to enter on that, but I need to coordinate that with, obviously I'm not going to do it by myself, so I got to do that. And I think this weekend is the iRacing Roar before the 24. So it's the iRacing 2.4, they're calling it. And I think it's just like a practice round as the Roar before the 24 is for the iRacing IMSA series. So, that might be interesting. Might have to partake in that. We'll see. Gonna have to do some practice here. Been away for a bit on winter break, so gonna have to, look into that and see everything, see what we can do to do with that. Otherwise, gonna just try to get back into it later this week anyways with the usual bits, the 87 car, obviously the Indy car. I don't think it's been made quite official, but it's all but official, that the NTT Data IndyCar series is going to go back to licensing the series officially. So we'll be back to the normal IndyCar schedule, and it will be at least some point this year the Indy 500, obviously, but also the Indianapolis Motor Speedway being on the IndyCar schedule for both the fixed oval series and the open setup road course series for IndyCar racing on iRacing. So at some point, they'll put that in. I haven't looked yet, but expect that to be coming at some point. So looking forward to that, of course, and the Cup Series. Next gen car, the Xfinity series, definitely going to be looking at that a lot as well. So, and any other road course car, obviously, to try to prep for potential run at the Rolex 24 if I decide. And obviously, going to have to look at my schedule and make sure I have time to do that for the iRacing 24 hours. But we'll see. We'll see if that goes, and obviously logistics involved in that. But obviously, follow me at twitch.com/Twitch TV/UZR2. Go on their streams, go on there, check it out, of course. And now that the iRacing Indy 500 is more than likely back, of course, hopefully we can add to that highlight of the 2022 iRacing Indy 500, hopefully. So we'll see. And hopefully the schedule will be open enough in May to be able to do that. So we'll see about that. But go on there, check out all the streams, of course, and then obviously, been popping off on Twitter about the Jaguars, and obviously we'll have to put that on there, our rant on there, my rant on there here tonight on our YouTube page, or later this week, but definitely we'll have that linked on Twitter, in which you can find my Twitter, JP Huffine. Go in there, follow, and see my opinions. Sometimes I give out some hot takes and everything. And sometimes it was in the moment, emotional. Obviously, some of that on Sunday was, emotional and everything. But obviously, I haven't been this mad in a long time watching the Jags and everything. And so, last year wasn't mad. It was more of hopeful. 2017, 2018 when they, I was mad in 2018 because they completely collapsed from what they had in 2017. But this surpasses that by far. And the loss to the Patriots in 2017 in the AFC Championship game, that was more depressing than it was anger or anything like that. So follow me on Twitter and see all my takes on that. And obviously now that we're getting back into NASCAR, we'll have more takes on there for racing and everything, and all the other stuff. So follow on there, and obviously see our page at Gripship Podcast on YouTube, where we'll have our stuff on there, where you can see our rants and all our 200 episodes up until then, and all our episodes from here today, and this year on our YouTube page. So go on there and subscribe. So yeah, very, very hot start to 2024. Joked at the top of the show that I would have my grill out, and I think I did all but had the grill out for this. So definitely turned on the furnace and everything. Hopefully in September we'll have something better to talk about, but there'll be a lot of time until then.
I mean, that was outstanding. As I say, for all, this is now 5 years, was 5th year we're doing this. It's rare that we get this side of Josh. Thanks to the Jacksonville Jaguars for that. Good, bad, or indifferent. Great. I don't know what happened there, but you can find me at PGMatthew28. You can find us at GripsForPod, both on Twitter. You can find me Philip G. Matthew28 on Insta. And on Facebook, we post on my Facebook page. It posts the show somehow. Find the show at philipgmatthew.com. And this is going to be hard. This is a great start to the year. I don't know how we're going to live up to that. Setting the bar high here in 2024 as I get closer to 40. 1 year away from that, since Lewis Hamilton, Sir Lewis Hamilton had his 39th birthday yesterday. My cousin, my little brother essentially, also shares that same birthday. And in 19 days from now, I'll be sharing a birthday with the great P.L. Newman yet again. God rest his soul. And I'll be turning 39. And considering how we started this show here in 2024, we're gonna have to keep bringing the heat. So we'll definitely do that next week. Talk about the playoffs, NFL divisional round. We'll also talk about coaching, Black Monday updates. Jim Harbaugh, depends on what his decision's gonna be. He might be coming back to the NFL. With unfinished business, and what Michigan will do if that were to be the case, and a lot more. Anything that comes up in the world of racing. Rolex 24 is getting closer. The Chili Bowl, we'll see who ends up winning that race, and the Dakar Rally, give you the updates on that as well. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to Gripship Podcast and for supporting us, liking and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.